Hi, my name's Drew Graham. I'm from Gym Possible, and today I'm talking about improving rehabilitation and well-being with exercise. So I broke my neck in 2014 and became a C4 quadriplegic. That was out in America when I was living and working out there. I was a keen athlete before my accident, and I'm still very interested in sport and fitness today. I used to be a middle distance runner, but now I focus more on stuff in the gym. When I was out in the States, I was lucky enough to experience state-of-the-art rehab facilities. I think the cost was something about £2 million. Luckily, I had insurance, but I came back to the UK and found that the same sort of facilities weren't offered. And I was really keen to continue with my rehabilitation and exercise, and there wasn't really anywhere to do it in the Northeast. So that's why I came up with the idea for Gym Possible. So what is Gym Possible? Gym Possible is a registered charity. We get all of our funding through crowdfunding and grants. Gym Possible's got two different parts. The first part is the gym, which is based in Newcastle, and that's a fully accessible gym with everything that we've got being 100% wheelchair accessible. The second part of Gym Possible is the online aspect. So we do free fitness programs for wheelchair users. We offer 3 live sessions a week and 2 pre-recorded workouts every week, and they're all taught by people who are wheelchair users themselves. I like to think of Gym Possible as not being a place, but a state of mind. Where there's a will, there's a way. So, what is rehab? To me, initially rehab meant trying to get my legs back, trying to walk again. But as time went on, I kind of realized that rehab's more about getting your life back on track than simply just trying to get your legs back. So what's the difference between exercise and rehabilitation? Well, as I mentioned, rehab's more about trying to get something that you've lost back. Exercise is more about moving forward, and you continue exercise pretty much throughout your life, whereas rehab's generally a bit more short term. Another difference is exercise is usually carried out by fitness professionals or can be a bit more casual. Rehab and exercise can be done in conjunction with each other though, and they complement each other very well. So why should I exercise after a spinal cord injury? Well, that's a good question, and I know you may not feel like exercising straight away, but there's so many different benefits that won't only help keep you out of hospital in the future, but it'll just help day-to-day living become a lot easier. Some of the benefits are that you're going to help with your bone density, reduced muscle spasticity, it's going to help with pain management, it's going to help build your muscles up so you're stronger, your muscle endurance is better. It's going to help with lung health, which is very important because pneumonia is very prevalent with people with spinal cord injuries. So there's loads of different reasons to exercise which help your body. But what are the mental health benefits of exercising? One of the main mental health benefits of exercising is the endorphins that are released every time you exercise. These are chemicals released into your brain that make you feel a lot better and give you that warm, fuzzy feeling throughout the day. Exercise helps you with routine and structure. When you first get out of the hospital, it's sometimes hard to find structure, so getting out of the house and exercising every day or a couple of times a week is a great way to have a bit of structure. The benefits of a change of scene are massive as well, so just getting out there, going to a different environment, getting a bit of fresh air, that's going to help your mental health. A recent Harvard study showed that you're 26% less likely to become depressed if you regularly exercise. And as you all know, after a life-changing accident like a spinal cord injury, depression's something that's going to be quite common. So anything that we can do to help stave off the symptoms of depression is only going to be a positive. Sleep deprivation is very common with people with spinal cord injuries for various reasons. But exercising can help alleviate some of the symptoms that cause that, such as pain and spasticity. So if you're exercising, you're tiring your body out, which helps you sleep, which is massively beneficial for mental health. Next, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of training after spinal cord injury. Easing into exercise is really important. When you're in the hospital, you may have lost up to 50 pounds in muscle just from lying in bed, so you're going to feel a lot weaker, and you're still getting used to your body as well. So make sure when you start exercising, you're not going all out straight away, just gradually build into it. Following on from that, avoid boom and bust. So instead of going straight in trying to exercise 7 days a week, and only being able to do that for, say, a week or two, it's much better to exercise, say, 3 times a week and do that long term. And on top of that, if you're exercising 3 days a week for, say, 1 hour, that's much better than trying to exercise 1 day a week for 3 hours, because you're more likely to open yourself up to getting injuries. Another way to prevent getting injuries is correctly cooling down and warming up and focusing on the correct technique. So if you're not sure what to do, maybe you could look into getting a personal trainer, or you can come on the Gym Possible YouTube channel where we've got all of our trainers giving you advice on how to do the correct techniques. Don't always be worried about going really fast or lifting really heavy weights. Correct technique's much more important. It's really important to vary your training as well. You don't just want to be doing the same exercise all the time, because you're much more likely to get a repetitive use injury. So say you do a bit of cardio, a bit of strength training, a bit of stretching. That's going to improve your flexibility, your cardiovascular system, and your muscle endurance, muscle strength. And that's a much more rounded training schedule than just doing one thing all the time. So in my professional opinion, I would recommend that you do 2.5 hours of exercise per week, and that's something you would build up to. You don't need to do that in the first week or even the first month. That's something you can build up to over a year or two, and try and do a couple of sessions a week rather than just blasting that all out in one session. And training doesn't have to be formal. It could be something as simple as just taking your dog for a walk. Next, I'm going to talk about exercise through sport. So sport's a great way to exercise, because a lot of the time you're working really hard but you don't really realize it because you're so focused on winning the game or just having fun, really. So before you know it, you've worked out for, say, an hour or more, and you didn't even realize. There are countless sports available to people with SCIs. I know a lot of the guys at the gym play wheelchair rugby, and I've noticed huge benefits in their fitness and their mental health from just getting out there, meeting people, having fun and playing a game. And it doesn't always need to be an elite level of sport like the Paralympics you see on TV. A lot of these clubs, you can just play casual games as well. You don't always have to compete. Training through sport is a brilliant way to meet people, socialize, and get a comprehensive workout, sometimes without even realizing that you've done a session. Next, we're going to talk about goal setting. I like to use SMART goals. I found that they were brilliant when I was an athlete, and I still use them today. So say that you're trying to get fitter and you said, I want to get fitter. It's not really a very specific goal, but if you said something like, I want to get fitter, so I want to be able to do 1 kilometer in under 5 minutes by the end of the year. That's specific. You've said you want to do a kilometer. It's measurable. Well, did you do it or did you not? What time did you do? Is it attainable? Well, if you've done a kilometer in, say, 5 minutes and 20 seconds, 5 minutes is going to be attainable. If you've done a kilometer in 20 minutes, maybe you need to choose something that's a bit more realistic, like 19 minutes. Is it relevant? Well, you've got a spinal cord injury and you're looking to get fitter post-spinal cord injury, so wheeling your wheelchair a kilometer in 5 minutes is relevant to you. And is it timely? Well, you said you want to do it by the end of the year, so putting a time limit on that goal makes it a lot easier to stay focused and stay motivated to complete that goal. So how do you gauge improvements with your training? One thing that I like to use is a training diary. This doesn't have to be something like, Dear Diary, it was beautiful and sunny today. It can just be something like, I did a cardio session, I did 20 minutes on the ski erg and I covered 2 kilometers. And then when you come back to that in a year, you can see if you've improved or not. Another great way to gauge your improvements is to do a fitness test every so often. So like I talked about trying to cover a kilometer in a certain time, you could set out a 1 kilometer route and do that, say, every 12 weeks and see how you improve over time. And that's just a great way to keep track of how you're doing. The rate of perceived exertion chart is another great way to keep track of how you're doing. So say your trainer could say, how are you feeling today? If you just said tired while you're doing your exercise, it doesn't give them much information. But if you say, oh, this is hard, I'm feeling like it's an 8 on the chart, that's a good way so you're both on the same page. And over time you can see, have you improved? You're doing the same exercise. Is it still an 8 or is it a 6 now? So that's also a brilliant way to keep track of have you improved or not, and a way to gauge your fitness. So there are some potential complications to consider when you're exercising with an SCI. The first one to talk about is potential shoulder injuries. So you're relying on your shoulders for lots of stuff, pushing around, transfers, so you don't want to overdo it. This rotator cuff is there's a lot of muscles and tendons. There's a lot going on there, so just be aware of that and make sure that you're warming up correctly before exercising. So when exercising, there is a potential risk of getting skin abrasions or pressure sores. So if you're doing something like wheelchair rugby in a different wheelchair, or if you're transferring onto a piece of equipment, if possible, try and use the appropriate cushion, your own wheelchair cushion. But if that's not possible, just make sure you're checking your skin often and try and limit your time that you're doing it for. Secondary conditions such as autonomic dysreflexia are something that could be affected by, say, using FES. So be aware of this and just know what to look out for when you're doing your exercises. Overtraining could be a hazard, so if you're training way too hard, you might be so tired that you can't transfer anymore. So just take it slowly and make sure you're not doing too much too soon. Finding the correct fitness professional might not be easy as well, because not everybody has experience and is confident when working with people with spinal cord injuries. But if you're prepared to educate each other and work together and think outside the box, it can be a really healthy partnership. A lot of gyms aren't accessible, so just make sure you go and do a bit of reconnaissance before you join up to a gym. Make sure the machines are accessible from your wheelchair. So are they far enough apart? Do you need to transfer onto them? Unfortunately, all gyms aren't like Gym Possible, but there are plenty of bits of kit that you can use in standard gyms. Purchasing your own gym equipment doesn't have to be expensive. If you're prepared to think outside the box, there's lots of kit that can be adapted to be used straight from your wheelchair. For example, the Concept 2 rowing machine, you can just do it straight from your chair. You don't need the sliding seat. Or the ski erg, you can just do that straight from your chair without any adaptations. And the last thing to consider is, if you do have any of these issues or complications, just make sure you consult a medical professional and get their advice before taking part in anything you're unfamiliar with. Something that I think is really important is don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you do that, you could end up like Humpty Dumpty. What I mean by that is, if you've got one big goal and that's all you focus on, say, I want to walk, I want to walk, I want to walk, and then that doesn't immediately happen, it's quite easy to get disheartened. So I think it's much better to have lots of little goals. So ticking off these little goals along the way becomes small wins, and small wins can turn into a big deal. And the more goals you achieve, the more goals you want to achieve. And for me, that's become almost like a healthy addiction, which has helped me improve my fitness massively. And another way you could put all your eggs in one basket is by focusing everything on rehab. Rehab is great and it's important, but try and have other interests as well. Try and see friends and try and find other hobbies as well, because if everything's rehab, you might just get bored of it and stop doing it over time. So scientists have found that your brain actually views your future self as almost like a stranger, and lots of people just don't do things to affect the future self because they don't really care about a stranger. So try and be aware of this, and just because you don't always achieve things immediately doesn't mean that they're not beneficial in the long run. Little things and little improvements can add up over time and turn into a huge improvement. It's also very important not to compare yourself to others. Every injury is completely different, and lots of people on social media may post about what they're doing. It's important not to get caught up with that and just focus on where you were last week or where you were a month ago or a year ago, and have you improved. It's also very important not to compare yourself physically to how you were before your accident. I could run a sub 4 mile about a year before my accident, and then I got out of the hospital and I couldn't even brush my own teeth. So if I'd compared those two things, it wouldn't have been very healthy. Just focus on where you were last week and keep trying to improve. Always try to move forward if possible. So if I met my newly injured self now, What advice would I give myself? The first one would be is that living a fulfilling life after spinal cord injury is still possible. It's just a case of reevaluating things. Since my injury, I've got married, I've set up Gym Possible, I've got lots of hobbies that I like doing, I still like to keep fit. So it's not always about getting your walk back, it's about trying to get your life back. I'd also tell him it's a case of reevaluating your life, trying new things, and always trying to push forward. I'd probably also say buy some Bitcoin because it's quadrupled in price since then and I'd be a multi-millionaire. And then we could have taken Gym Possible from Land's End to John O'Groats. So what 2 things should you take away from today? Something that I really love is SMART goals. I think those little goals that result in small wins is just a great way to keep you motivated. The second one is probably the don't put your eggs in one basket thing. It's important to have other interests. It's important to have other goals as well as just one goal. Thank you very much for listening today. I'm Drew Graham, the founder of Gym Possible. I'm sure you'll agree that what we've talked about today will help add value to your rehabilitation and well-being through exercise. So thanks again, everybody, and good luck with your exercise and rehab.